A couple of weeks ago, we were watching some interesting filmmaking takes on Reddit, and I discovered this post. Now, while the comments were pretty insufferable, I did really like this aesthetic. And the thing is, it's pretty attainable. And I mentioned that even though this is a power grading LUT pack that you can just buy, you can probably make this in DaVinci Resolve for free. So with that in mind, I spent the next few days trying my very best to recreate it. The results were interesting, and I learned a lot in the process. Let's dive in. The stream was a little scuffed overall, but I was really happy just to be able to walk around and stream and do something that I love. The thing that I really like about streaming so far is just the excuse to go outside and do more things that I wouldn't have if I wasn't doing this. In the end, we came away with about 40 clips, probably 10 of them were usable, and I grabbed a couple extras on the subway on my way home. And what's really important to understand here that I didn't understand until I got to editing and color grading is that the person in the video does a really, really good job of choosing what they shoot. You'll notice that in the video I'm referencing, it is very brightly lit with artificial light. One of the big shortcomings of my footage is that the contrast is way too high and the massive dark skies really sort of start to break the footage. So if we play along with those rules, artificial light, brightly lit, the stuff on the subway really worked the best. And these are the clips that I ended up being the most happy with. They required the least work and they look the best. But there were a few other things that I noticed in this footage that really make a difference. The first thing is that anything underexposed doesn't work great. Like I said, we're looking for lower contrast scenes with even lighting. This is my first time working with Sony's S-Log3. This is my first time working with XAVC-S. So I had a lot of learning. I'm not used to these files. I'm used to the bigger, beefier files that'll come out of an Alexa or a Red. I know that I'm a bit of an elitist that way, but I went to film school and I had these cameras and that's what I worked with.
So, just to give a little bit of context, this is Alexa footage. This is very similar to the clip that we had that was looking directly into the light behind the orchestra, and you can see just how much I can really do to this footage. I can throw on Ari's LUT, and I can get a whole bunch of detail with very little clipping.
So this was a big learning experience for me. How much could I get out of this footage? How far could I push it? What does the low light look like? And now I'm really tempted to go out and shoot again and see if I can get clips that fit these constraints a lot better, and I think I'd get much better results. So we did do a lot of learning about how this camera works, how the footage grades, and if we do this again in the future, what we need to shoot for. So this is what I did, and these are the problems. The first thing I did, color space transform and apply the Fujifilm LUT. The problem? Honestly, after the color space transform, I think I lost a lot of flatness in the image, and I think it didn't grade out as well because I was missing some dynamic range. The second thing, I used the DaVinci built-in LUTs for Fujifilm. It worked really well on the train clip, so I went forward with it. And I kind of remembered why I hate the film emulation LUTs in DaVinci Resolve. I think I would have done a much better job if I just graded it myself in a way that kind of looked like Fuji. So that's mistake number one. What I did next after that was apply a Gaussian blur to both the highlights and a small Gaussian blur to the overall image. This gave it sort of a glimmer glass look. If you know what that diffusion does, it only really affects highlights. This also decreased the effective resolution throughout the image to sort of mirror having more vintage glass. I also gave it a vignette to also make it look a little bit more vintagey. Now I'm not entirely happy with the way that these Gaussian blurs panned out. I think there are probably better ways to achieve this, especially the small Gaussian blur over the whole footage. Maybe there's a better way of doing film grain to give that less high resolution look, but the reality of digital footage is you really need to dirty it up for it to look even close. The most important part of what I did was the film grain itself. In DaVinci Fusion, there's a great effect called Film Grain FGR, which is available to free users. I used that, poked around with it a lot, it does a decent job. You can't push it too far, otherwise it just looks like digital grain and no one wants that. The interesting effect that I applied to this was masking off the highlight areas. If you don't know, film gets grainier the lower it is exposed, so the higher exposed areas will have less film grain. This goes a little bit of the way to emulate this. I feel like it could have done a better job, especially because of the color space transform and the Fuji LUT. I was really struggling with the highlight areas. If I had not used those and then gone back with the film grain, I think it would have worked out better as well. So, let's review the do's and don'ts if you want to recreate a Fujifilm look at night. Step 1. Grade the footage. Don't use a color space transform and avoid the Fuji LUTs. Do it yourself. Use reference footage from Fuji to inform how you grade. Make sure to include cool tones because Fuji uses a 4th cyan layer. Also, with Fujifilm emulation, it's important to understand that reds really pop. Second, apply the film grain. Make sure that the film grain isn't too excessive, and make sure that the grain matches the type of film that you're going for. Mask off the highlight areas and only apply a very light grain to them. At night, you're looking at high-speed films that will have more apparent grain. Make sure that the coarseness and size is correct. Again, use reference footage to ensure accuracy. Mask off your brightest areas and add a Gaussian blur. We want some softness, but don't make it crazy. Make sure to only go for the highest white value areas. Apply a slight Gaussian blur to either the footage or the film. Cover the entire area with this. Our goal is to reduce the effective resolution of the image and does not have the over-sharp properties of digital imaging. Make sure you apply a vignette. Hopefully, after all of that process, you'll achieve something that you're happy with.